What are the best cards that you should bring to your next card show as a Pokemon, One Piece, any sort of vendor? Today, we're going to go ahead and answer that question for you so you can start killing your next show. Hello, guys. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Stevie. You're here with Uncle Steve's Card Shop. Primarily, I sell Japanese, Korean, and Chinese product. However, as of late, I've been a Pokemon vendor, attending a lot of local card shows. I used to go about once a month, but now we have ramped it up to almost 2 times a month. I'm trying to do as many shows as I can in my local area because for me, that is the absolute best way to make both connections with you guys and to make as much profit as humanly possible for my business. So let's get to the question. What are the best cards to bring as a vendor? The honest question is, it depends. It really depends on a lot of factors. I don't know what card show you guys might be doing. I don't know the scale of the card show, which is going to be a huge part of this scale. I don't know how big or freaking how much liquidity is at your card show. For example, if you go to Collecticon, you can bring everything. And I mean everything. Everything. Collecticon to me, for example, and shows like this, like a front row of Collecticon, is where you bring your low pop stuff, your super high end, anything that you are wanting to really move that you're stuck on, I would bring to Collecticon and to front row because those are where the craziest and the biggest collectors are. Super high end. Sorry, I was getting bugged that I didn't write it out for you guys. Then after Collecticon, I would say next you got your local card shows that are a little bigger. Let's say for me, it would be like a Collector's Expo. Collector's Expo. You could say HypeCon for us in the Bay Area. You could say East Bay Card Show, even for us personally, I would say is a bigger show, but it's just going to be some examples. Any show that you would consider a little bigger than your like run-of-the-mill average weekly card show where people have to pay an entrance fee to get in usually will fall into what I like to call tier 2 shows. Tier 2 shows are, in my opinion, the best way also to make your profit and be safe about everything because this is where you can bring your like bigger cards. I'm talking like your Lugia Altar, your Rayquaza Altars, your Moonbreons, and in my experience, some of them will move. This is where you can, really make some value by bringing some desirable items and just trading to them. You can just trade big items to create value. But obviously, now we have the question of what is value and how are we going to determine what is good for us. So value to me, as I'm going to write here, is going to be anytime we go up in terms of inventory value. If I trade at 80 to 85% and I trade a $1,000 card, well, I just made myself a nice profit. A 20% increase in my inventory is another $200, so my $1,000 became $1,200. Do I have to sell this? Of course I have to sell this, but this is the game as a vendor. You're not here to just cash out and make your damn money right away. Not generally speaking, at least. Obviously, if you watch my vendor meta video, this would be a whole other topic, but that's more like what you should be buying. And if you want the quick rundown there, you should buy all PSA slabs 7+ with comps on card ladder value, and you should find someone to flip them to immediately at the card show because there are people paying 80 to 85% of that value. If you find a connection, you can sell it for about 87 to 90. And if you pick them up for that 80 or even 75, which still is pretty damn fair because it's $40 cheap slabs, then you are just flipping endless profits, yada, yada, yada. Sorry. That is my, that's a whole different subject, but we're here to talk about what you should be bringing just as someone trying to sell to regular people who are here to attend your card show. For me, as in tier 2 shows, the value is really in trading your big stuff for even more stuff, and then this stuff turns into more cash, which you can use to continue to buy put myself up here real quick, which you can use to buy, big stuff. And, you know, you go in this endless loop, and this is kind of the fun part about being a vendor. You never know exactly what you're going to get. And this is all the fun in the world for me, really. The other nice part about these tier 2 shows, which I will get back to as soon as I cut here and just rewrite it out. It's going to apply for tier 2 to 3 shows. The other part about that is nice about these shows is the small stuff does move. Small stuff. I'm talking your $1 to $20 cards do end up moving. I throw these in just a binder, a loose binder, let people look through. People end up buying arts that they like, which is why I like to break my $1 to $20 cards, IRs, cheap SIRs, anything pretty, really. I like to bring vintage. Vintage has suddenly been hot. Some people are looking very specifically for vintage because this is, who would have guessed it, vintage. This is a collectible card game. So people really want to collect, especially their childhood collection, stuff that they have a huge affinity to. So for me, vintage has always been nice because I have people who come to me, celebrate that vintage, because most people this entire time haven't been collecting vintage and haven't been holding on to vintage since it was slower. For me, bringing a small amount of vintage has always been nice just because I can make a nice little grab on it. On top of that, prior to this, you could buy vintage for cheaper because no one wanted it, and you were still helping them liquidate stuff when they didn't want it. But yeah, vintage. Is there anything else I would say is really good? This for me is kind of the big things. I would still bring promos, like some sealed promos that people really want are like Gold Star Greninja, even people still want. I brought Burger Shoe to my last show. Burger Boy, let's just say. Obviously Van Gogh people would also want because it's still a tier 2 show in that sense, but we're kind of trying to stay on the lower end here. So for me, this is kind of where I would like to stay. And that is pretty much what I would say is best for tier 3 as well. It's usually the small stuff that'll pay for your table back or pay for your time to make it worth it. Especially $1 cards. You'd be shocked how many $1 to $5 deals I do at a daily card show. If I do like, I don't know, let's say, let's say 20 of them and they're $2.5 each. It's like $50 for free that I did getting rid of quote unquote junk. And that's just on 20. I'm pretty confident I do more than that. On top of that, you're more able to take in some lower end stuff that helps people's day, and you can turn it into $1 usually because $1 is pretty reasonable for most cards. Next, let's go over the percent breakdown for items I think you should be bringing to these card shows. For tier 1, like I said, we have Collecticons and front rows. For these, I think 70+% should be $500+ if you can do that. I think $100 to $500 cards you're bringing should be like 20 to 25%, and the remainder is the 1 to 99 range. I really just, when you go to tier 1 shows like this, you got to make it worth it. You have travel, you have all the expenses. In general, when you start calculating all expenses that come with traveling to these card shows and making them try to be worth it, this is why I can't personally facilitate going to like a Collecticon or a front row unless it was local to me. For me, this is way too expensive. The only way to make this worth it is if you were going to do the PSA buying strategy in the PSA meta video I made. I'm not going to go over that again, obviously, but that's the only way tier 1 to me would be worth it. And you would need a huge amount of budget just to start turning up and burning as hard as you can to make it super worth it for you. Tier 2 shows is where it gets interesting. This is the sweet spot to me. This is the most value, the best kinds of shows, in my opinion, to make money at because I don't have to travel. I get to keep my expenses low in that sense. So for me, I like to get $500 and up higher. Probably about 40 to 50% of my case, I want to say, is going to be this. This is what I want it to be. It's really difficult in that sense. $100 to $500 cards then becomes a whole other subject. This is where I try personally to gravitate towards. Let's say I keep another 30% here. And then 10 to 20 will be here. Because this is going to be like 30 to 40, actually, if I'm more realistic. And then this is going to be 10 to 20 for the 1 to 99. The 1 to 99 slowly pays itself off and helps if the other stuff isn't selling. The $500 cards, if a single one sells or trades, I consider my show more or less paid for because my show is costing me like $300. And if I sell a $500 card, then I guess I have to sell 2, actually, because I'm going to I'm going to net like $100. So I gotta sell 3 $500+ cards if they're only $500. If I could trade a few times, that's great too. And if I get a buy, then, you know, that's even better. And that all of that adds towards my $300 fee. In the end, it also depends on what you consider it worth it. To me, if I get to add to the value of my collection / inventory by the same amount I paid for the table, then it's super worth it. As long as my table's paid for with utter profit. That will continue to propel my inventory up, which will continue to allow me to sell more, which will continue to let me make a bigger inventory, which will eventually let me graduate to going to tier 1 shows as the most important thing to me, because then I can sell my $3,000 Lugia card or whatever other card I may be wanting to really move on and get even greater stuff. And I would have access to bigger items coming to my booth. In the end, for me, tier 2 is great. But tier 1 is obviously where you want to end up if you want to do this as something massive. But back to the subject. That's why, for me, keeping bigger inventory is usually nice. I probably actually skew closer to this $100 to $500 range if I'm real with myself, because that's what I'm able to get at these tier 2 shows and tier 3 shows. It's pretty hard to get $500+ cards if you're not paying a really hefty percentage. And at that point, you're usually doing that buyer strategy anyways and immediately flipping it for profit. At tier 3 shows, I might bring like 10%. Maybe 45 and 45 here. I never can know for sure what people are going to bring, and I choose this percentage breakdown because I'm in the Bay Area. So people are a little more wealthy here, a little more willing to spend on cards. In your area, it might actually be worth it to go like 75, 15, and then the remainder right here, like 10, I guess it would be. Because maybe in a less affluent area, all the $1 cards start selling, and then you just make great money that way, frankly. Because if you can buy a 50-cent card that no one wants and flip it for $1 because someone just likes the art, then that's great. Vintage for a while was being bought out at 70%, for example, and you just made 30% every time pretty easily on a few dollar cards. Just keep doing that over and over and over and over again, and you just make a, like a nice snowball. So for me, that would be my general percentage breakdown. I try to vary this based on how I'm feeling about shows and in general how I'm feeling in the given moment. But I do keep this in mind when I have too much inventory and I actually have to decide what is coming to my shows, or I decide what is being displayed because I just don't have enough space. Outside of that, I think that's pretty much everything that I could say is the best stuff to bring. In general, when I say this also, it should be liquid items. If it's the $100 to $500 stuff, that generally is going to be the case. The $500+ stuff, if it's not a liquid item, it's not as good. That's why at the start I said it is for Collecticons and front rows. Please keep that very in mind, because I don't want to hear, why did you tell me to bring my freaking, I don't know, Magcargo Pop 10 to my tier 2 show? No one's ever wanted it in the last year. Well, of course they didn't, buddy. It's a Magcargo Pop 10. You need a Magcargo collector, and they're hard to find. In fact, I wouldn't even take those until I'm big enough to be able to just sit on it for a long time, because I know the value will hold, or it will most likely hold as long as Pokemon hold, but that's a whole other subject. I think we covered just about everything. Obviously, there is nuances here. You really want to make sure things are liquid. That's why the $100 to $500 range is generally the sweet spot, because almost everything in there is liquid. Like, that's why you'll see the vendors with all the same alt arts over and over and over again. You see them with their Lost Origin Giratinas, their freaking Bubble Muse, they're 151 Zards, they're... I'm blanking a little. Lily's Clefairy, to a lesser extent, not Crown Zenith Pikachu. There's no Crown Zenith Pikachu. I mean, I like the Crown Zenith dogs, but that's me because I think the cards look great and they fall under this $1 to $99 range, and people love them and they keep taking them over and over and over again. But that's a whole other subject once again. You really need to figure out what is liquid in your area, though, when I say this. I have done really well with Crown Zenith. Other people have told me Crown Zenith is freaking terrible for them. I've done really well with 151 as of late. Other people tell me 151 are bricks now. No one wants them. I completely disagree. I would be happy to keep taking them. I'm happy to keep selling them. I don't know why I'm getting lucky, though, in my area versus other people. It's always really interesting, though. And that's why you need a diverse breakdown of cards, really. It's always trying to think about what is the good breakdown, noticing what is selling, and trying to bring more of it. When you are constantly paying attention to this, it will assist you in spades, and it will help you continue to grow your collection and your business if that's what you so choose this to be. And if this is a side hustle, have fun. The hobby is really nice, honestly. The people seem to be really good overall. I've made a lot of friends in this vendor community. And honestly, a lot of us, at least, are really trying to do good by the other people who want a better outlet to both buy cards and want a better outlet to both sell cards. As a vendor, obviously, we can't always give the best rate humanly possible, but we can give better than a card shop because we are there for 2 days. We don't have rent to pay. We don't have utilities in that sense. We don't have so many of the other expenses that force card shops to go smaller on their percentages. And obviously, some of them are also just, they just want to take the best percentage they can for themselves because they can. They have no competition. You either want to sell or you don't. I think that's just about everything. I hope this video is helpful. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I don't know how well these kinds of videos are going to do, honestly, but it's something that I like to chat about, so hopefully it helps you guys out. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you soon.